Okay, hello and welcome to the first ever Hornthrowers podcast. I'm joined by Simon from Dawn Raid. Couldn't think of a better way to start off the first podcast.
Yeah, sick. I'm very excited to be here. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Excellent. So I thought I'd just start off generally for people who are not familiar with the band, kind of maybe talking about the origin story of the band. I know you started off as a sort of deathcore band called We Came Out Like Tigers.
Yeah.
And just kind of how you made that transition to black metal, etc.
As a point of information, I would say it was a screamo band.
Okay.
But it's all fairly nonsense, I guess. But yeah, we used to be in a screamo band. I grew up listening to like punk, and then got into screamo and grind when I was young, and so I guess I came to metal that way really. I'm not I didn't grow up listening to Iron Maiden or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like a bit of an imposter sometimes. But yeah, the only metal I like is like extreme metal, I guess, like death metal, black metal, and doom.
And some of that kind of grew out of the punk scene as well, like
Yeah.
Napalm Death, grindcore, etc. And
Yeah, it definitely makes sense in my head to be here. Yeah, and being into screamo, especially the harsher side of it, like Circle Takes the Square, and Orchid. For me, that felt like a natural progression to just taking pretty similar elements of very harsh tremolo guitar and miserable screamed vocals. To me, that just felt like a natural progression to then get into black metal. I remember Wolves in the Throne Room happening in 2008, and I was just whoa, what the fuck is this? What is this music? This is, and yeah, just been obsessed with it from there, I guess.
Yeah, Wolves are amazing. I've seen them several times, and they never fail live.
Yeah, I definitely feel they must have been an entry point for a lot of people my age, I guess, or something. They were one of the entry points to black metal, I guess.
100%, and I also think it's a nicer entry point than I think the one that most people have of getting really into black metal, maybe things like Burzum, stuff like that, finding out a little bit about the people who made that music and kind of recoiling in horror.
Yeah. It's funny, I had a lot of friends that liked all sorts of types of extreme music. And I remember someone telling me at school about like Mayhem, there's a lot of bands that killed each other and all this sort of, and kind of and I remember listening to De Mysterious and stuff when I was really young, but it's just not really clicking with me, not really.
Yeah.
I thought the Extremity was cool, but I didn't really understand why people liked it. And I've since since maybe learned the error of my ways, and I appreciate all those bands now a lot more, and I like a lot of those records. I feel like black metal's an interesting genre because for me anyway, I never intended to get into this sort of music. It just sucks you in. I guess sometimes there's something just catches you about it that whether you like it or not.
I always liken it to a kind of musical Stockholm syndrome, where the first time you kind of hear black metal, you're like, what the hell is this?
Fucking hell.
Yeah. And then
probably a good
eventually
metaphor.
you kind of develop your ear, start picking out melodies and some more interesting bits that's going on in that kind of lo-fi mix, and it's just it actually, you kind of have to desensitize yourself to it to a certain point before you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, we have all sorts of enemies and naysayers around the world.
Yeah.
But something that's often levied at is but we came from a screamo band, or we're not true, or we're not into this music for the right reasons. And I wonder what the right reasons are to be into black metal, because it's one of the least commercially viable types of music. It's one of the least societally acceptable types of music. You can't really play it to your fucking friends who don't understand. I feel like the only possible reason you could want to listen, it's not cool. It's just you like it because you just have this intense emotional connection with it. And I find the sort of the hipster black metal tag or something quite interesting, because I just think what possible reason what have people to gain from listening to this other than you just emotionally connect with it? I don't think there's a cynical reason to be into black metal. I find that quite interesting, really.
You hit the nail on the head, and I think a lot of the sort of quote apolitical people that kind of detract from a lot of the red anarchist black metal ones to say, oh, black metal should be dangerous and blah 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 and subversive, and I'm like, well, a lot of their politics I don't particularly see as rebellious in any way whatsoever. So it's bizarre that they think kind of supporting conservatism all the way to outright fascism. They somehow think that's rebellious, and that's something that I think you guys.
Yeah.
I think it was actually because I was listening ahead of the interview, re-listening to Wildfire, and that was something you comment on in the lyrics about the curious case of fascists wanting to be rebellious but also wanting a master, or I'm paraphrasing there, but
I think that's mental, that stuff. Fascism, only is the strong arm of capitalism. It only serves to benefit the interests of capitalism, despite some of its supporters claiming it is in some way anti-capitalism. It's just a really extreme form of capitalism, I think, and it just serves to bring the population back in line during periods of uncertainty and turmoil.
Yeah, especially when you look at the 1930s, where like everywhere was in capitalism was in crisis across the globe, and it was either sort of the sort of two camps was like state socialism, Soviet Union, and then a reaction to that, which you saw in like sort of Germany and Italy and things like that, which was like it was just like this kind of spasmodic response of the extreme right to the rise of socialism. Yeah,
and I find it interesting that like you would gladly vote away your autonomy, your own rights, like any kindness towards your fellow man. I think that is in some way, I don't know, a rebellion of any kind.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we were going to get into the whole anti-fascism and politics later. Yeah, it's fine. We're all anarchists here, so it's a safe space.
Yeah.
So we kind of like why you kind of moved into black metal, and as we're there now, sort of like what was the main inspiration in kind of like carrying the flag for like anarchism and anti-fascism in a scene which is predominantly like infested with fascists, like.
Well, we were playing in We Come Out Like Tigers, and We Come Out Like Tigers, I think, especially on the last record, you can hear like a black metal influence. I think like it was always like strongly influenced by black metal, and especially towards the end, I became really jaded on screamo, just touring constantly, playing with like 4 other screamo bands a night. For years I was just burnt out on it, and I was like, okay, I gotta do something different here. And all I was listening to at that time was like I was really into like Woods of Desolation and like all those sorts of like sort of more atmospheric black metal bands. And we'd said, like, okay, the moment this band finishes, like, let's just start a straight-up black metal band. I felt like we'd been sort of tiptoeing around it for years. And literally, the day We Come Out Tigers broke up, the bassist couldn't do it anymore for a few personal reasons, and it just wouldn't have been the same band without him. So we're like, okay, let's quit while we're ahead. And, like, I rang Matt, the drummer, like, literally the same day, and I was like, okay, do you want to start a black metal band? And he's like, yeah. So I think, we just did that straight away, and it was never intended to be particularly political. I guess some of on the first EP we did, Thorn of Blight, like half of the songs are quite emotional, personal songs to me, and then there's a few very political songs in there, but they're just things I genuinely, sincerely care about and think about. And we wanted to tour Dawn Raid in the same scene, the sort of DIY crust and squat scene that We Come Out the Tigers have grown out of. We just wanted to use, cause that's where all our friends are, that's where we belong, and we wanted to be a part of that. But that was like 2015, which is like before like this current wave of RABM had happened at all. So we'd play shows in Germany, and people would just put on the flyer that we were a screamo band, because like they wouldn't put black metal like on a flyer in a squat because of the association with Nazism over there. So we just had to make it really clear when we were booking shows and we were promoting ourselves, like, this is a black metal band, but like we are not, and we're not just saying we're not Nazis or apolitical, like we are against fascism. Like this band is anti-fascism, and it was just so we could, in good faith, continue to be a part of a scene that we were already a part of. And I guess it just kind of snowballed, and like people latched up. People actually quite liked the idea that it was political. I think, and a lot of people were really connected with that.
It's how like we discovered you, because we were playing in a band, and our guitarist, because we were like always like lamenting the fact of, oh dear, like yet another like black metal band we thought were okay have made some horrendous comment. And then my friend who's like from the Liverpool area and was playing guitar with us was like, well, have you heard of Dawn Raid? And I was like, and I've since found out that this isn't true. Like, but like there are all these rumors going around that if you saw someone in a Burzum shirt at one of your gigs, you'd kick them out and stuff like that. And
it's funny they hate the rumors, man. I've never really. I have kicked someone out of a show before, but it's because it was in Liverpool, and the promoter of the show was a person of colour who I stood talking to, and this fucking knobhead walked up to me and just said, "I believe in white power," and like me and the promoter like literally, I don't know if his feet touched the floor. He was like carried out of the venue because like there's a fucking line.
And like you don't
have to. you don't have to agree with everything we say, and you don't have to be a fucking card-carrying member of anything to come to a Dawn Raid show. But also, and I really want to connect with lots of people that are different to me and believe different things. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and we often have more in common with each other than we think. And I think often these political labels sometimes get in the way amongst well-meaning people. So I'm definitely not like the scene police or anything like this. Mm-hmm. And I don't fucking care what T-shirt you wear to a show, unless it is like the 1% of particularly abhorrent T-shirts. I don't know, particularly offensive. I don't care what merch people wear. I don't care what bands people listen to. I'm not here to tell you what you can and can't listen to. But like, if you say to me, to my face, that you believe in white power at a show, then like, probably kick you out of the show.
You don't need any justification at that point. Like, they've given it to you.
I do like the rumours though. Those rumours, I just find those quite funny. The rumours that go around about.
I mean, honestly, like if anything, I think it just added to your credibility and made me more keen to listen to you. So yeah, so that's cool. So like, kind of like a really good segue into this is kind of like what your thoughts and feelings are maybe on like the separation of art from artist. So because that's kind of like a huge thing, and like myself as like a queer person that grew up loving bands like Dissection and Emperor, who have been involved in like homophobic murders, etc. Hugely conflicting, because we were taught like no, like black metal hits me in like an emotional area that like like no other music can, and it's like a really conflicting thing. So do you think you can separate art from artist at a certain point, or I know I've used a very extreme example there where literally murders have been committed. But
well, this is the question, isn't it? That I don't have a solid answer for, and I feel like my answer to this has changed over time. I did some work at a record shop in Wallasey near Liverpool called Dark Earth Records, and I did some work for the guy who opened it up, helping him set it up. And we're friends already, this guy James, and he's been like an eco-activist in the past, and he definitely sells records in there that like are right-wing. And we were chatting about it, and he's a radical, I think, and like he's a good person. And his take on this was that your logical part of your brain and your emotional part of your brain are separate, and you can't necessarily always help the things you emotionally connect with. I don't think that means you have no accountability, and I don't think that gives you like free reign to just fucking listen to it and promote and indulge all sorts of terrible things. Yeah. But we've all, I think this is probably true for anybody in society who's listened to music, because like abusers and racists are not confined to black metal. They're in
100%,
black metal to pop music and everything in between. I think we've all fallen in love with bands and with songs that have gone on to do, or it's been uncovered have done like terrible things. Yeah. And sometimes those songs come on playlists, and you leave it on and you listen to it because you love that song, and you can't help like the feelings of nostalgia from you being a kid getting into this stuff, or maybe it's just sincerely a really good song. And I don't think we should beat ourselves up about listening to these things, and you can't help your love for these things, but we also do have to acknowledge the problematic behaviours of these people. I don't have a really clear answer, and there are songs that I love in secret that I wouldn't mention, because these people are terrible. Yeah. But I can't help the feeling, those sincere emotions are attached to those songs. I don't think you can help that. For me, I have no interest in. Well, I love the rumours we were talking about before. Yeah. I got fucking in shit on Twitter because we played a show in Portland, which had armed security at the show because they were worried about the Proud Boys attacking it because of how political we were. So that was how intense this show was. Like the woman taking the money had like a fucking gun. Like it was wild. And it was the second show on that tour that had happened. And a kid came up to me, be young, and he had a Burzum t-shirt on, and he was just like, he was enamoured with it. And he was enamoured with Ragnar, who played before us. And I gave him like some anarchist leaflets and stuff, and he'd been chatting to the people at the info desk as well. Mm-hmm. Some people have been doing like handing out the flyers. And he had a fucking Burzum t-shirt on. And I chatted with him, and I was kind to him, and he was a nice kid, and he was just there because it was a black metal show.
Yeah.
And I think, I hope that he was also then introduced to like anarchism and what queer bands look like and what it looks like when fucking women play black metal.
Yeah.
And like I hope he learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
And someone gave me shit on Twitter saying I was really disappointed to see Dawn Rage chatting to someone in a Burzum t-shirt. And I think, what do I do in that situation? Like, do I hit an 18-year-old? Like, do I drag him out by the scruff of his neck, or do I actually like? He's just a nice, probably decent person, looking for answers in the world who maybe just hasn't found them yet. Because my politics weren't perfect at 18.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh
like,
God, I like sometimes things will come up on my like, Facebook stories, from years ago.
Yeah.
And I just cringe. And
And I think in 10 years' time, my politics I hope will have developed again. Was it maybe Proudhon that said he hoped that his ideas, he was very radical in the 1800s, but he hoped in the future his ideas would be seen as conservative because of how much anarchism would have progressed. So like,
I've never checked out Proudhon as much. Is it Proudhon or Proudhon?
oh, I don't know. I'm probably saying it wrong.
It's sort of like later people like Bakunin, where I kind of jump in.
Yeah.
It's mainly like Peter Kropotkin, and I'm probably more on like the syndicalist side of it when it comes to anarchism.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Again, I think he's a flawed character, but
Yeah.
said some interesting things. But yeah, I think like,
But no, it was a good quote. Though.
Yeah.
Like, I like that, and it's the whole thing. You notice that with people's politics. Like for example, like my parents were probably quite progressive when they were teenagers. You
Yeah.
know, very like sort of pro-gay rights, etc.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then you talk to them about issues like trans people now, because society's kind of moved on, thankfully, from like that. And it's just like, oh,
still a bit of work to do, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the best trying to try and get back and answer this question. I guess I think the best way to deal with that shit. I think because fascism is a real threat in this scene. I also don't say those things to lessen. It's not that I don't care about it. I do care about fascism in the scene. I think the best way we will deal with it is if we can build a better, more positive, more inclusive, more loving and more decent scene to replace what's happened in the past. I think if we create a space where actually you can be openly trans and you can be openly queer and you can be a person of colour or any possible marginality and feel safe in that scene, and you can be a straight white man and feel equally part of it and safe.
Yeah.
Like that is, everybody is welcome. The rising tide of equality floats all boats. Whatever. I think we're better off building a more positive scene to replace what's come in the past than we are just bollocking people about what merch they're wearing or like.
At that point, you just alienate people. You're not making allies. You're not building your movement.
Yeah.
It's just the typical fragmentation of the left.
Yeah. Because like I think radical politics now are intrinsically a part of black metal. I think like, and looking at bands like Sorgsfart and other bands, they have been actually for decades, but you can't deny where it's come from, and you can't deny what happened in the second wave, and like that has been a problem in the past. But those records were formative of what this music sounds like, and Dawn Raid sounds the way it sounds like, one way or another, because of those aforementioned bands. Whether it's because we've listened to them and been inspired by them, or other bands that I like have been, like Wasn't the Throne Room cite Burzum as an influence. Like if you start an anarchist band influenced by Wasn't the Throne Room, there's a link back to Burzum, and that's a shame. But I think the best way to deal with it is just to build a new, more positive and inclusive space where we can all learn about this stuff and like work together and work and fight for our common interests rather than just fighting amongst ourselves, I think.
Yeah, no, like I completely agree with that, and it's definitely an issue when you delve into like too much of like purity politics. And things like that. And you can alienate people, and trust me, fascists are more than happy to lap up all those
That's
people
their fucking
you just
vibe,
pushed
man.
away.
Yeah.
So moving on. So the next topic, like I thought would flow well into it, is like talking about anarchism, the punk ethos that you've got. You've mentioned like you play like squats, and like whenever I've like looked to see you guys live, it's like, oh, they're playing a soup kitchen, or they're playing it's like really bizarre venue choices, but it's really cool. I was wondering if there's anything more you wanted to kind of expand on that. I know you talked about how you kind of like grew out of that scene with your previous screamo band and stuff, but how does that experience differ, do you think, from like a traditional black metal band, because you have that DIY kind of punk ethos?
I mean, the one thing I will say is I people love to pigeonholed all these bands as being entirely separate, and like death metal and grindcore was just the same as punk, but with a different aesthetic. I think it was like kids organising it themselves. It was DIY, and I think there's obvious comparisons to black metal as well. Like, well, actually, some of the second wave bands actually had more budget for recording than they sort of let on sometimes. Like the tape trading, the DIY artwork, like young kids making music with the equipment they had. Like, there's obvious parallels to like other DIY scenes there as well, and communities. So like, I don't think all these things are all that different, but nevertheless, I like growing up in that. I grew up in that scene. I got into anarchism because I got a Crime Think flyer at like a hardcore show in like 2010, and I just read it. I was like, oh, yeah, this is what I am. I think like these are ideas I think I had but didn't have a name for, and then we very quickly ended up in our band. We were touring Europe and we were playing squats, and these ideas were just like these are the accepted ideas that these places were run under, and it was like so unbelievably inspiring, and they were like the formative moments of my life. Like just seeing places run horizontally, and like free association, and refugees welcome stuff everywhere, and like queer people just present at things like in ways that other parts of society people didn't feel comfortable being a part of, and it's like unbelievably inspiring. And that stuff made me who I am as a person, and I really hope we never lose that connection as well. Like while we're trying to move into different types of music at the moment and do different things, I do hope we never lose the support of that scene or our access to that scene, because some of the most profound moments of my life happen in these buildings, and I really like how these places can look so spiky and uninviting from the outside, but and from the inside can look the same, but are like genuinely like really positive and like really welcoming and really awesome places to be, and also like hilarious sometimes, like as punks can be. But I like it. Yeah, it's like that formed me as a person. I don't know exactly how that's formed Dawn Raid, but Dawn Raid is a reflection of who we are, and I feel like my political ideas were formed in those places. So.
No, well, 100%, and it's nice to have that different angle, and also the grassroots DIY thing. I think is a lot cooler than the traditional way that a lot of metal bands form and kind of go forward, where they're just sort of like playing regular venues, getting support slots, building like that, but actually like doing the whole sleeping in squats, like touring like that on the grassroots. It's really cool. Yeah.
And also like the things we can achieve without external influence. Yeah, we can build these scenes ourselves. We can do it ourselves, and like the music industry can die, but music will never die. Live music will never die. You can take away like all the good venues in a town, and someone will just open one in a shop front or in a house, and there will always be live music. And I think that's still really inspiring.
Yeah, no, 100%. So like another topic, so I purchased the red and black vinyl. You did it for the refugee charity.
Nice. Yeah.
I was just wondering how that came about, and if you just wanted to, maybe sort of talk about that a little bit. But I thought that was a really cool idea.
I mean, the initial idea of the fundraiser was actually came from Prosthetic Records. Actually, they said like, do you want to do a record as a fundraiser? I guess like we talk about these politics and then we sell things and make money, and we have to balance the books there. We have to be using this band to promote revolution, not revolution to promote this band. And we have to sell t-shirts to make money, because we have to pay for the gas in the van, and we have to pay for the van, and we have to pay for flights and all these things. So we can't do things for free. We have to make money somehow. But also we can't just be profiting from these ideas and not trying to like reckon with that and make that good. So I think it's sort of Prosthetic Records' idea to do that fundraiser, and they were really cool about it. Initially, they were gonna they were just gonna put all the profit from it, but they ended up putting in all the money that was made. So they put in the money for the manufacture cost, and all the postage money that was made as well also went to refugee rescue. So
that's really cool.
people criticize that label, and I'm nothing is beyond criticism, and I'm sure every label has its problems, but they were really cool about that. They organised that whole thing, and with our help, and put a huge amount of money to that. I think we made like $3,500, which we were proud of. So
yeah, no, definitely you should be.
Yeah, so that was cool, especially during, I think that was during COVID. Which was just fucking miserable for everybody, and everything felt like it was collapsing down around us, and there was no music anymore, and it was really cool to try and do something that, like, felt like it kept Dawn Raid alive and still trying to achieve the things we were trying to achieve, and we were all just stuck at home, isolated. Like, that was a really positive moment, actually. That was cool. I think, like, refugee solidarity and anti-fascism, they're my cause the célèbres. I think they're the things that I probably care about the most. Like, some people prioritize animals or the environment, but that's the stuff that emotionally, like, really grabs me. So yeah, that and the other two. So yeah, that was why we chose refugee.
No, fantastic. Kind of led me on to one of the next questions I wanted to ask as well. Like, so how did you cope with COVID, basically?
Oh my fucking god! The last 3 years has been fucking bullshit. Oh my god. Yeah, like, I feel like you didn't want to talk about it initially because people were dying and people were on ventilators and people were really suffering and they were losing their loved ones. And my granddad died on a hospital ward, and my dad wasn't allowed to go see him, and he died holding the hand of a nurse he'd never met. You know, I definitely, there was some fucking miserable times. And so I think it was difficult because initially you didn't sort of want to really think too much about how it was affecting you, like an able-bodied, healthy person who basically just had to stay at home a bit. And like, you're like, oh, what? Yeah. But I feel like maybe now we're at a point where we can reflect on, actually, this has affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and the real health concerns of people that are really affected is obviously always the most important. But yeah, then there's been all these secondary effects, I think, of like just brutal isolation, and like a couple of moments of it's been really, really sad, and like real despair, and like the point of, like, I think my girlfriend had to take me out for a walk because I was just like just going mad about it. It's like, okay, let's just go stamp this out in the rain and feel better. But like I had decided at one point, it's like, okay, music is never fucking coming back. Like, I've put all my life into playing music and touring, and it's fucking over. And it's like, it's never going to come back, and everything's terrible and everything's fucked. And I really, it felt like for a couple of weeks that was true. This was just that people were talking about the new normal, and yeah, like that is heartbreaking. And I feel like I think a lot of people had some similar feelings around that. So yeah, I feel like maybe we can all, the next few years maybe we're all just going to be sort of processing actually, like, how you sort of keep your chin up throughout it and try to stay positive. But actually, I think this has probably hit everybody hard in a myriad of ways. And it's been rough. I think we tried to do loads of positive stuff. We did some something cool, like merch drops, and we did the fundraiser, and like we did some like stuff around like homelessness, and like we did wildfire through COVID. Yeah. That was just like, okay, we have to just do something to be a band here, because this is rubbish. And that stuff like kept me going, like being able to, like, when you're allowed, like we were able to be in a practice room, all of a sudden you were seeing people, and your life had a bit more purpose. Yeah, it's been tough, I think. I worked right through as well. I work in construction. So I kind of never really stopped working, and then I got really burnt out from work, whereas my partner was just like working from home and really lonely all the time. And I feel we've all just had these mad, different experiences that have been equally rubbish, but in different ways. So yeah, I don't know. It's been rubbish.
Yeah, it's kind of the answer I was expecting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned wildfire then. So like, I was picking up. I know we mentioned before we started recording that there was a real sort of summoning influence there. Who are, I think one of the best of that kind of ambient symphonic black metal. Yeah.
For the audio, that was a chef's kiss there as well.
Yeah, and also I was so relieved to hear that they're actually anti-fascist as well.
Yeah, fucking hell.
I think that might have broken my heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the summoning influence was definitely an intentional thing.
Oh, like, yeah, I tried to be as heavy-handed with that as we could. Yeah, I really, I just love, like, I love summoning. I love those bands where you have to just give yourself over to the ridiculousness of it. Like, this is like, this sounds terrible. there's parts of something that are quite clumsily done, and like it's a bit clunky sometimes, and like
that's the charm, right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So like, yeah, I really love that, and the otherworldliness of it, like it just like it is I really like, I love dungeon synth as well, like
it's like kind of all these like 90s like MIDI instruments.
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
Like that. It sounds like kind of like the black metal equivalent of the RuneScape soundtrack.
Yeah, fucking definitely, yeah. I feel like there's like a real like purity to it. Like it's just like it's so like heartbreakingly sincere, and like and like the clunkiness, and especially like some of the early albums, and I'm guessing they're quite young. Like there's like a real like honesty to it, you know, like because it's just like that clumsiness is like gives it a real sincerity, I think, which I think is probably what we're all attracted to.
And I like the later Summoning albums a lot.
Yeah,
the kind of earlier stuff like Minas Morgul and stuff like that is it has more of that charm to it. That we're talking about,
I think that the MIDI stuff as well, because it's like rock music is very literal, isn't it? Like you hit something, it makes a sound, whereas like the synth stuff is like it's like the opposite really, and like I feel like it really. You're not just listening to a band in a practice room anymore. You are all of a sudden you are in this fantasy landscape or something. You're like these like just otherworldly sort of synths that are not real instruments, and like I love that. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, and just being a giant nerd as well, like so like obviously the Tolkien references throughout.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Actually, one thing I really appreciate about Dawn Raid is the fact that you still use the kind of like medieval kind of like Celtic sort of like that kind of like imagery and stuff like that, which is usually claimed by other sorts of bands, and it's nice. It's like, no, you know, we can have this. This is our heritage too. You know, just
there's definitely some countries that we go to that people don't like that. Not go like too specific, but yeah, there's definitely places we go where that stuff is, I think maybe is so heavily tainted by the far right that there's certain T-shirts that just won't sell in certain countries and stuff. Which is fair enough. But yeah, I like the far right have no more claim to fantasy or history or anything than we do.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing of like, I think it might have actually been like in the lecture Fabian gave that about like how like fascists don't really have a culture, they just sort of latch on to other scenes, other cultures to try and recruit and spread their ideology.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, absolutely. I love all that stuff, and I grew up on a lot of that stuff, and Tolkien's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, I'm covered in like.
I was admiring these. We've got like a ton of Tolkien references on the new record as well. Which I can't talk about loads because we haven't announced it, but yeah, you might be somebody who will spot them.
So that was actually going to be like one of the things I was moving on to next. Obviously, you don't want to give too much away, etc., and we wouldn't expect you to. Do we have a title for the new album that's public?
I mean, we haven't announced it, but it's going to be called To Know the Light.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a killer. I'm really proud of it. I think it's like...
So was that an exclusive for Hornthrowers then?
Yeah, fuck it, why not? I'll probably be in trouble for saying that. I'll probably get like an angry email from the label maybe or something, but here we are. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's like very, very different to things we've done before, I think. The production is like completely different. We just put like 3 times as much effort into this as we've ever put in before. I really hope this is like, this just feels like everything I can possibly do in music, this record. I don't feel like there's anything I could have done better. And I don't know if I could have said that about the other records. So, we've recorded it in January. So we've been sat on it ages, and it's like, that's been hard, yeah. It's been hard just to sit and wait for all these wheels to get put in motion. But, really
near the end of the month it's coming out, isn't it?
We've got like an announcement this month, and then it's not out till like March. But we've got singles coming out in January, February, and March.
Okay, because I saw like you putting up like the posters and stuff like that. I assumed that the date on that was the album
that was an announcement for the announcement. That's what that was. Some stupid social media things we have to do. But yeah, the record's not actually out till March, but the PR campaign and all this sort of starts kicking in sort of towards the end of this month.
Ah, excellent! I can't wait for it.
Yeah,
I'll be pre-ordering that on Bandcamp.
Yeah, nice.
So that takes us like so. As album aside, what do you have any like plans for the future of the band that you're very excited about? That kind of.
Man, just like for people to hear this record, I feel like there's been so much planning has gone into getting this record done, and like so much behind the scenes stuff we've had to do. if we can just get this out. We've got like a pretty comprehensive UK tour booked for March. I think we're doing like 12 UK shows.
Sweet.
Which would be cool. We have a lot of European dates booked. I think I guess we need to get back to America, which probably won't be till early 2024 now. But like, yeah, I guess next year just hammer the UK touring, hammer mainland Europe, and then try and get further afield after that. But
Nice.
yeah, basically March, I guess, like the album cycle begins anew, and we just have to just promote and sell this record, I suppose.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, if we can just survive till March, then and see this out. Then that's kind of where my horizon stops at the moment. I just need to get this record out. But.
No, I'm sure like ourselves, and we play you guys all the time on the radio show and stuff.
Sick.
So like, I'm sure everyone's like really pumped for the new album.
Yeah, it's hard really, 'cause I feel like we've been promising it for ages, and it is so different. And maybe that might be divisive. Maybe I don't know, but it's like I don't know. I feel like we kind of had to we really rethought what this band is, and I feel like everything we were trying to do before, I feel like we've completed what Dawn Raid was before, and the direction we were going, I don't think we could take it any further than it was. So we've changed that.
Definitely, the first album definitely had a much rawer sound with the occasional sort of like violin interlude and stuff like that. And I kind of noticed there's a lot more melody on Behold's Edition's plain song.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's been stepped up again. Yeah, it's going to be very different, but I'm so proud of it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
excellent. Yeah, just ending, we've got like a couple of like viewer questions and stuff like that. Because I basically threw up something on one of the lefty black metal groups I'm on Facebook and was like, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
First one is, will we ever see a We Came Out Like Tigers reunion?
No, stop asking. No, never. Never. I don't think. Well, actually, definitely never. We were offered like, and what was a large amount of money to us? Probably not a large amount of money to most people, but we were offered like a decent chunk of money to get back together for a festival in Germany. But I just feel like I'm a different person to who I was in that band now. Like, I'm really proud of it, and it was like I'm really glad to have like that. Those records are just like a cool archive of what my life was at that time, and a nice record of who I was and where I was at and stuff, which I'm really, really proud of. But I just feel like an entirely different, older, more jaded person since that. So I don't think it'll happen again. If it did, I think it'd just be this really insincere thing. And there is like no money to be made from We Came Out Like Tigers getting back together. It's not like we can do some cool, cynical, like world tour. So that band is. I was very proud of it, and I was sad to see it finish, but it's done and dead. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that puts the nail in that. The next question we had is, would you ever consider having a bass player in the band?
So we've got a proper real bass guitar recorded on this record. We don't have, and we are simulating this in different ways live now, but we have no plans to have a bassist live. I just feel like the way, we have considered it a few times, but the way the three of us work, it just works really well, and I think we have a really nice dynamic the way we work together. And I just feel like if we added someone else in, it might change that detrimentally, I think.
I kind of like thought, like, and I don't mean this in any way as a criticism, but like, you guys have got quite a thin sound, like in comparisons, like, you know, but that works for black metal, in terms of like the lo-fi stuff and like the guitar cutting through and all that kind of stuff. So like it really works. So I understand not wanting to play with that. Yeah,
I mean, like this next record is like much fuller sound. There's like full bass lines for every song played on a bass guitar. So I think the record sounds quite different, and I think we quite successfully managed to like recreate that. No, we haven't played these songs live yet, but in rehearsing, it's sounding good actually. And currently no. I guess like this band is evolving all the time. So,
well, bad news if that guy was like angling for a gig or something.
The budget doesn't allow. So sorry.
So like the next question was about violin. Are you self-taught as a violin player, or did you receive lessons as a child or something?
Yeah, I learned from being a young kid. I've only done up to grade 5. I got to grade 5 and got into like traditional Irish music and playing that quite a lot. And then was a teenager and then wanted to be in bands. So I didn't play it for ages because it wasn't very cool. But actually found that it worked. Actually, it was quite a cool addition and an interesting addition to the bands I've played in.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, it's like and I'm not using this word like again as like a pejorative. Like, it gives like a novelty to Dawn Raid that maybe it doesn't otherwise have, and it like really complements what you're doing. Like, and it's one of the things I think attracts people to it. Like, just seeing like a 3-piece and one of the instruments isn't a bass, it's a violin. Yeah,
it wasn't like it's just something I can play. So yeah, I guess it was never intended to be this like mad like USP, but I think it's a kind of part of who we are. It was quite interesting. So yeah,
nice. So last question from the fans was, what classic acts from the 80s and 90s have influenced your sound as a band? I think specifically black metal was
okay. I know like Matt's really into like Bathory and specifically Celtic Frost, and he's really into Motorhead. We definitely have like a few like Motorhead drum beats on our songs, I think, and that's like a big point of reference for him. Like Dark Throne, I guess, like is like you kind of have to listen to those bands. Like, honestly, like I went through a period of being really into Dissection and like an Emperor for a while. I like loads of that second wave stuff is unbelievable. I think Ulva like would be Fabian's point of reference. Like I think just like melody wise and like Feldsanger as well was like that's a crazy record. Like
the first couple of Ulva records were just. I love them because they've been a band that's been so constantly evolving to like what they're doing now, which is like this weird like avant-garde sort of like music. Now. Just love to see them live. They're just looking.
I really like that they just created like some of the three most important black metal records like ever. One of them wasn't even a metal record, and then just abandoned it and walked away. And it's like, that's a wild thing to do. That's cool just to be like, nah, fuck this, we're doing something else now. Like takes great. Integrity and bravery, I think. So that band is like very inspiring. So they're probably our 80s and 90s metal reference points, I guess.
Excellent. So like 2 things just to end the interview. Would you like to pick 3 songs for the next radio show that kind of like 3 red anarchist black metal songs that you think should be on people's radar? Maybe like and going forward and why? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I love Underdark. I really like them as people, and I really like them musically. I definitely pick an Underdark song. I have a real soft spot for Sorgsfart as well, because like it's just like mental and like it has that real like clumsy, like youthful, clunky sort of like black metal thing that I really like.
Yeah, it's like kind of like all of the like, Viking-y folk elements of it are very prominent in the mix and like over the top. And it's really fun. I've only recently discovered them a couple of weeks ago. But, they're really fun. It's great.
Sometimes like a bit crackers. I feel like the little mouth harps every now and again. So, whoa, that was a wild card. But
I mean, even Bathory used a mouth harp.
Okay, right, maybe I'm the one that's wrong here then. Probably. I don't know. I never know. I struggle with the RABM thing. What else is there? Anarchic B by Scargos, like 100%. In fact, that should be number 1. That's like maybe I don't know. I'll just regret all these choices now. But like the Predator Drone song by Iskra is like unfucking real. I love that song.
Did you have like specific songs for the Underdark and for?
I'm really bad at name recall. Is it like the Prison of Flesh and Bone? Is it something about the Underdark song? Is that one of the song
titles? I know like Bank of Roses. That's like a really melodic one.
Maybe
I'm not great with song titles either. It's just
Same. Man. We forget our own, and all our own songs have nicknames, and then we forget what the song titles are.
The trouble is, like, I'm very much like an album person, so I'll whack an album on, listen to the whole thing, but I'm having to force myself to be like, no, what was that bit that was really nice, like, so I can go back and play it on here, and
I guess I don't know, like a Raganet, a black metal band, but I think they have some black metal influences.
Yeah.
The Invocation Part 2 is an unreal song. yeah, I guess that's way more than you asked for, but that's
No, I
probably
mean, like,
my
it gives
hits.
us half an hour of programming.
Sick. I never know about the RABM thing. It's like a title I sort of struggle with, really. I don't identify with it that hard, really. But then I guess
It's
we
a
are.
weird one.
that.
It's useful in the sense of like kind of actually like finding bands that you are happy to support, etc. You know, like financially as well. But like a lot of them don't fit into the anarchist label as well.
Yeah.
Like, so like a lot of them, like Sankara, for example, you know, like are like either Marxist Leninists
Yeah,
or
it's
Maoists
weird
or
authoritarian
something.
shit.
Yeah.
Although I do, yeah. I
Um,
really like those the guys that do that, man. But yeah.
And like I don't think Wolves in the Throne Room are like. When I say that they're very political, I mean like they're definitely not happy with like racists and fascists in the scene, but like they don't adhere to like an actual political ideology, to my knowledge, and things like that. Like, so it's, but they're lumped in with the Red Anarchist black metal as well, and
yeah. I feel like everybody involved in it claims that they're not that. It's one of those things that nobody really claims to be, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess the handy shorthand. Titles these, but I also like I feel like really out of touch. Like we used to just be touring all the time, so you go to every town and play with the punks in that town, and you just know it. I just knew what the scene was because we just meet people every day, but I've just not done that for 3 years, and I just feel like really out of touch with that stuff actually. Loads of the bands that I used to really like have stopped or haven't seen for years, and so I'm really hoping to be on tour again and doing all that stuff again and meeting people.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah, sick.
So lastly, bit of a philosophical question, but
okay.
As sort of as an anarchist, somebody that is deeply concerned with things of freedom, autonomy, creating, as you said, like those horizontal sort of structures of power, more just sort of like, you know, generally with all of the very horrible and scary things that we have going on in the world, what gives you hope right now? Like,
well, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. This next record is all separate songs. It's not some mad concept album, but it does have like a thread through it about like, and it was informed by my and our journey through anarcho-nihilism. I read like Desert and Blessed is the Flame and some of those books sort of the start of lockdown, trying to make sense of like the world, and as we sort of see ecosystems collapsing, and the book Desert talks about the dangers of hope. So we place all our faith and hope in the next climate summit, and hope the world leaders will somehow come to some sort of arrangement and save the planet, and they never do, and our hopes are crushed, and that's really damaging. Or like, we hope that if we can just vote in X, Y, and Z party, then everything will be fixed, and it isn't, and then that's really crushing again. And some of these books taught me that like maybe hoping that things are just going to get better is actually really damaging to us, because it never does. And maybe we're better off accepting things are fucked. They've been fucked for a long time, and they're just really obviously fucked now. And everything, like there's lots of terrible things happening. And while there's loads of terrible things in our future, I'm sure, there's also the chance for loads of beautiful, amazing moments of liberation and freedom and joy in our futures as well. Nobody saw the Zapatista uprising coming before it happened. Nobody saw the Kurdish revolution coming before it happened. Nobody saw like the Ukrainian like movement with Markno before it happened. Nobody.
Oh, like in the 20s.
Yeah. Nobody could have predicted Kronstadt or some of the moments of the anarchist towns in the Spanish Civil War. So like all these things seem impossible till they happen, and things can seem incredibly dark, but like things can also change in a split second. And there's lots of things to be sad about and concerned about and to be scared about. And I worry about the future a lot. But it is what it is. And the state, I think the state isn't going to help us. The government is never going to fix this. It doesn't matter if we vote in the blue party or the red party. They all work to the same end. And the quicker we stop putting our faith and our hope in these people and realize this is where we are. This is what's happening, but we can find joy and freedom and liberation within what is happening.
And do you think like
the easier it is to cope with, I think.
Do you think with the abandonment of hope, then it's that you then realise that, well, no one's going to save us, so that it's up to us.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
That's what you find. That's the kind of solace that you find in that.
Yeah, and I think there's genuine joy and happiness to be found in that. It's not, I don't think it's a really negative thing. And I think
like nihilism generally is like a liberating philosophy.
Yeah.
Like it's just like when pitching it to someone at first, it sounds very depressing and dour, but it's the idea of, well, if there is no inherent meaning, then that's freedom.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah. And like, especially like seeing that combined with ideas of anarchism and liberation, like that's been really powerful for me. And I'm not saying I'm like a card carrying, anarcho-nihilist or whatever, but I found some of that stuff really useful, just trying to cope with it in my own head, because like, I feel scared about the future and I feel scared about the present. But I found some of that stuff really interesting. But I feel like maybe that's like not actually answering the question you're asking. I think like there's loads of things that, while I don't hope that things will just automatically get better, I see loads of potential for and loads of beautiful things happening all the time. I see one of the things I used to love was going to squats and meeting people who were staying at squat for 2 weeks on a holiday from working in the Calais jungle, the refugee camp there, or I do some work with a refugee charity in Liverpool, and going to that place it's called Asylum Link, and it is staffed by a lot of people who are asylum seekers. So the first people you meet when you come through the door are people who, especially as an asylum seeker, when you enter that building, you are greeted by people like you, going through the same things, not just by like white, hand-wringing, well-meaning, like English people, which I think is really important. And it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. And like people who don't give a shit what political label you give them, and don't spend time worrying about the purity politics or the finer details of some of these ideologies that maybe I obsess over too much sometimes, and that just work every day, just reaching down and pulling people up and helping others to help others, and feeding people and clothing people and finding them emergency accommodation and places to live, and putting them into hotels if necessary, and just being kind to people who walk through the door. I have a lot of time for people who just liberate animals, and take sentient things that are clearly sentient and clearly feel pain and love and grief, and trying to, even if you just help one life, that's important. And so seeing people fighting against this unbelievable tide of animal abuse, just to save a few, I think like breaks my heart, but in a positive way. And like, so just seeing other people, even in the face of unbelievable adversity, not giving up. And we can't give up. And this is, I think, what our record is about too. But we can't give up. We have to keep fighting for what's right, even just because you know it's right. Even if we're going to lose, I'd rather be on the side that tried than the side that didn't. And
so it's like a quote from Firefly, like the TV show, where it's like, I might have been on the losing side, but I'm still not convinced it was the wrong one. Yeah,
definitely. A beautiful way of saying it. And just to not be broken and beaten by what's happening, I think is really important.
Like I've been vegan for 10 years, and it gets depressing, but I've got friends that have given up their entire lives to like anti-fracking camps, to like, stopping badger culls, to doing loads of stuff. I've just got the utmost respect for them.
Yeah. I don't think I don't have all the answers, and I don't do everything right. I don't think any of us does, but you do meet people that like are really inspiring and are doing their best. That if anything gives me hope, is people like that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this today.
It's been great. I've enjoyed this.
Right. No, it's been great to have like a long form chat about everything from politics to black metal.
It's good for me as well. Like it helped. Like we're all trying to work this out in our heads, I guess. Like we live with all sorts of contradictions in a really fucked up world, and I've just done this with a little branded Cafe Nero cup on the counter as well.
I'm sure there'll be somebody in the comments section telling you that you're not a real anarchist.
I'm not sponsored by this, but I mean, if there was a deal going,
Awesome.